This conference will now be recorded. This conference will now be recorded.
Whenever you're ready, then.
Okay, it is now 6:30. I call the Cottage Grove Fire District Commission meeting to order. We have a quorum and the agenda was properly posted both in the town and the village. No one's on from the public. Next agenda item, discuss and consider minutes from the April 24th, 2023 meeting.
Move approval. Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion carries. We'll hold the chief's report for now when Nick gets in here. So I'll move down. Discuss and consider payment for IT equipment in ESB. Chris, you showed me the last meeting. There was that little bit of an overage, but then
Yeah, 140 or 150 bucks.
Kim had said that Kim sent me to Nick. Nick sent me to Eric. Eric was going to try to get Horseman to honor the original quote. Does that ring a bell, or is that more of a Nick thing?
Yeah, I heard that, but what I heard was they weren't going to go down to that 1302 that we had approved. There was still going to be a little difference.
What world can you get a switch for 16 bucks? On the original estimate, the switch is 16 bucks. And on the 165 bucks. I think they just missed, like, typoed that 5 would be my guess, because that's the only change from the.
Which one?
So the bill versus the quote, the switch was 165 bucks, and on the quote it was 16. I think it's just a fat finger miss on this, on the 5 for the switch.
Oh, I see. Fat fingers.
Could be.
Is that the difference?
Yeah.
149.
Nobody would think you could get a switch for 16 bucks.
It's a unified switch. Hey, Nick. Any news on the from Eric about the Horseman bill?
He was dealing with them. He said that he was actually gonna call in. I don't see him on there though. But what he told me is that they, when they quoted it,
There you
they had a typo. He can explain it.
go. Hey, Eric, you there?
I am here.
Hey, we're talking about the Horseman bill. Looks like-
Yeah, that's why I logged in.
Yeah. So Vince pointed out the typo, just as Nick walked in and said there was a typo on the original quote of 149.
There was a typo on the estimate. Of course, when they did the actual invoice, they didn't get it wrong. I remember back when you approved it, you wondered what $16 was for something ubiquity, you know? I was like, I don't know, it's their estimate. So they adjusted the invoice to reflect the actual cost of that part, which took $40 off of it.
Oh, so it's actually more than 165. So they're
No, it's less than 165. It's 125.
Basically, they discounted it to cost instead of with a markup.
Yeah, because I'm like, the error clearly wasn't our fault. We didn't make the error in data entry. So as the least you can do, just only charge us cost for that part.
Okay.
sounds fair to me.
So then the total bill is only 14 or 1401?
1411.97. They take
Well,
40.
whatever the total was minus $39.95.
You can't be a round number again. Jeez. Public math here.
Have we already paid him, or is this?
No, we did pay it.
Yes, it has been paid because Kim didn't catch the discrepancy until she went to enter it into the books.
Oh,
And that
and
was just
saw that it was
meeting.
approved for one amount and then paid for a different.
so we just need to make it red on paper then.
Yeah,
Correct.
Does there need to be a motion or?
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to pay the bill minus $39.95.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All
That
those
was
in
a
favor say-
genius way to get around doing math in public.
I get my calculator out.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion carries. Nick, you're next up. Chief's report.
All right, sitting at 46 staff right now, 10 officers, 2 drivers, 30 firefighters and 4 probationary. We have 111 calls. You can see in there I have 1 exposure. What that means is that we were on the example would be we were on a structure fire and the garage was on fire. It also melted the siding on the house next to it.
next door.
They consider that an exposure, so you have to document it. It doesn't add to our total call numbers, but it's
For
that's an
insurance.
exposure, you have to document it. So that's where that number comes from. Average is 0.80 calls a day. If it stays at this rate, we'd be at 292. When I ran that math, that's the same as it was last month. So we're staying at 0.80 right now for the last 2 months. That breakdown is 51 in the village, 21 in the town of Cottage Grove, 16 in Pleasant Springs, and 23 in mutual aid. Tender 2 is all done with the light replacement. Ladder 1 needs a hydraulic valve it's the valve that transfers the hydraulic fluid from the jacks up to the turntable to operate the ladder. Sometimes it sticks, it still functions, but we're trying to get it so it doesn't fail on us out in the field.
That's not the valve we had replaced last year, was it?
No, last year we did or a few years ago, we did all the hydraulic lines between the turntable and the tip that does the leveling because there was some leaking inside the ladder itself.
Okay.
So this is
It's different. Okay.
Engine 3 had a small water leak that was repaired under warranty. All the annual fire hose testing has been completed. We only had like 3 or 4 hoses fail, and 2 of them were just because they were too old. They still had brass fittings on them. So those ones they won't test for us, but it's not a big deal. Training for April was wildland burns. Training for this month has been electrical safety and natural gas emergency responses. The whole department went to the solar farm out in the town, learn about the hazards associated with that and pre-plan for any incidents we have out there. Staff milestone, myself with 16 years, April Hammond with 22 years, Kevin Laufenberg with 16 years, and Lance Severson with 22 years. We added 1 new member in May. We received 1 application for another member, and we had interest from at least 2 more people. So we potentially might be adding a few people if they follow through with their applications. So that flyer went out last month. So it looks like there were a few people that responded to it. So
And you said the total staff can be how many?
50. Yeah. So we're getting close. And I didn't put it in the chief's report, but the compressor project is done. It's all installed and up and running.
Nice.
Any other questions for Nick? Thanks, Nick. Appreciate it.
I do have one question on total staffing, your self-imposed limits. Is there, you seem to be in an uptick as far as, individuals looking to join the fire service.
So the limit is not set by us necessarily. It's part of being a 181. We could make it more. It just means that we wouldn't be qualified to be in the Wisconsin Firefighters Association anymore, which
Why is that?
because once you're over 50, you're not allowed to be. That's what they said. So
Part of state statute 213.
so it's a state statute, and part of the benefit for Wisconsin Firefighters Association is that the members get like a accidental death and dismemberment. It's not a ton of money, but it's something, so.
You said 213?
So
How many statutes have you memorized?
Staring at anything enough every day. It's gonna hit you. So that works. Cool. Moving on, number 7, discuss electric vehicle fires and possible equipment needs.
So I did a little digging. There was 3 options on there, and I put some clips to some YouTube videos from it. Basically, the big thing about electric vehicle fires is once the battery cells rupture, they heat up. And then as they heat up, they spread to each other's cell, to more and more cells until the whole battery's doing what they call a thermal runaway. So the big problem about putting the fires out is that you need to get the water inside the battery to cool it down. And it's not really an easy task. Even these 3 options that I put here aren't really necessarily 100%. They still take, first one, the best system. I think it said if you put it in there, it takes 16 to 18 minutes to cool the battery down with that system. The other ones, you're looking at a couple hours, a couple 1,000 gallons of water to put them out. So this best system from Rosenbauer, basically it takes an air cylinder from our packs and it fires a pin through the battery and it sprays water directly into the battery cell, which helps cool it down faster. They said 16 to 18 minutes, flows at 5 gallons per minute, and it's like, so you use a lot less water and it's quicker. That second option was that Sudsit nozzle. That one is basically just a nozzle on wheels that it rolls underneath the car and it sprays up, but it doesn't penetrate the battery. So if it's burning inside the case and there's no opening, you're just spraying the outside of the case. So it's still going to take a long time to put that out. And then the last option was fire blankets. And we've actually been looking at the fire blankets for car fires themselves. It's you literally just throw this tarp/blanket over the top of the car and it smothers the fire out. It takes some time, usually with that one.
Heavy, huh?
Yeah, they didn't look that heavy, but I don't have an exact weight on it.
Yeah.
That would be used with something else in conjunction. You wouldn't just use that on an electric fire. You'd have to use like one of these other 2 options with it, probably at the same time. But those are reusable, so you can get, I think they said 6 to 8 fires out of on a one tarp before you have to replace it. So I put the 3 options out there, and then I actually got a quote from our guy on all 3 of them. That best system is very expensive. I mean, I think the quote was like $29,000 for that thing. The other one,
I'm in the wrong business.
yeah, that Sudsit nozzle was like 2,500 or 22 grand, and then the tarps were 3,300 a piece. So I don't expect us to buy that right this second, but maybe it's something we could put into a capital budget plan or
For
something.
next year.
How often are you looking at these types of fires, like say around the interstate?
The electric vehicle fire,
Yeah,
so far, knock on wood, we haven't.
no, I'm just, is there like some kind of database or?
I'd have to do some digging to see if they have statistics on it, but
There's probably some statistic relative to fires per 100,000 EVs or something, but
sure.
as they become more and more.
Yeah, but that's what I'm trying to figure out. Is it something that we put in our budget for maybe 2 years out?
Yeah.
And give us a chance to.
So you see what else is new that they.
What's the
Yeah.
protocol today, though? Like smoking hole in the ground, get everybody out of the way and just let it go?
That's why
Yeah.
I was wondering that same thing. How long does it take for a car to burn itself out?
An electric vehicle,
See, I'm watching a video here and they get hot.
But
Oh,
an
yeah, they
electric
definitely
vehicle
do.
is, once the battery goes, they said that the rest of the car is totaled, right?
Yeah, well, pretty much for us, anytime a car starts on fire, they pretty much, an insurance company almost always totals it. Because once it gets into the, you know, to a certain point, it's more expensive to try salvaging it than it is to even a regular vehicle. So I guess the big difference would be the amount of water and the amount of time. They're saying that it could take up to 6,000 to 8,000 gallons of water to put out an electric vehicle fire because of the battery. Right now, a standard car fire for us would be maybe 1,000 tops and 20 minutes, 15, 20 minutes to put it out completely. So there is.
I'm curious as to what, you know, part of the situation is too, is we all know, those of us in the business, the troopers are like, get the goddamn thing, whoops, pardon my French, but off the highway here. You know, they don't want to keep the road closed or a portion thereof for hours.
Yeah.
Waiting for a vehicle, and not that there's any good solution to that right now, but
But I think it's something that we could look at, but, maybe even put, well, I suppose everyone's gonna be putting it in for like that, what was it, that one thing that we always,
I mean, the grants.
yeah, the grants.
The AFG grant?
Yeah, I mean, eventually it's gonna work its way down to that, don't you think?
I guess what are other departments, and again, this is just a discussion item, right?
Right.
Now I'm glad we're talking about it, but I mean, like, what are other departments locally and across the state? Like, to me, this feels like a hope and pray this doesn't happen, but when it does, it's a problem, right? Because they get so hot, you have to dump thousands and thousands of gallons of water on these things to put them out. And even after you get them put out, they're still hot. I mean, because it just, again, if my father was here, he'd be telling you, see, no, we shouldn't be buying EVs because like this is these are hot, right? Like,
Well, what happens to that 8,000 gallons of water when it runs off into the
Yeah.
ditch too?
Right, that's
Filled with
another part.
battery acid and God knows what else.
Yeah, so that'd be, you potentially have to have the DNR involved for cleanup and retainment. And
I mean, it feels like to me, and I'm just watching the blanket here, like, again, not perfect, but I keep, on Instagram, I keep getting the kitchen fire blankets. Like it's the same idea, right? It just snuffs out the fire, but it's like, you said this is about $3,400, $3,500 for the blanket.
for the blankets, yeah.
It's good for 7 or 8 fires. Is
Yeah,
there a shelf life on it? Like if you don't use it by this date, you kind of got to buy it.
that's one of the questions I gotta ask the manager to find out, to make
I
sure
would assume, I
I
mean,
that question too.
19 feet by 26 feet, 6 mil by 8 mil, $3,300.
That's not very thick, 6 to 8 mils.
It's not going to cover a Hummer EV, I'll tell you that.
But yeah, they let this thing go
New Ford.
thermal runaway,
EV, you know,
480 degrees Celsius,
Oh,
whatever that is. I don't do the
A lot
math.
hotter. Fahrenheit.
that's hot.
No, I think it's not a question of when, it's not a question of if, it's a question of when.
I can put out a message to there's like a chat group with the Wisconsin fire chiefs. So I can put out a message on there to see what other people are doing for EVs or EV
Yeah, I'd be
fires.
curious as to,
Just to hear
I
what
mean,
other people are
there,
doing.
maybe, well, like,
Somebody may come up with a better idea next month
yeah,
too. We don't know. But you would think they would have.
Some bombs.
What's that?
She says she put the blankets and then they make, they call them fire bombs, where it's basically like, blows the fire
I don't
out.
know if bombs are very effective,
So,
but I think it's a,
yeah.
College.
It's more like a grenade. It's more like a grenade than it is anything else, and they tried those for years.
It's like that scene, in Backdraft. Like in Backdraft, when
That's
he
why they
knocks the
stopped using
fire
the
extinguisher
old
on.
ones because they got so toxic. You don't want to drop them in the fire station, the glass ones.
Did you say 480 degrees Celsius?
Mhm.
About 1,000 degrees. That'll roast a couple marshmallows.
Some of our neighbors are doing blankets.
Are they?
Who's doing the blankets?
I believe Manila has them. There's a couple others that are doing the blankets, but the blankets, you have to leave them on for at least an hour because the fire will reignite.
Because if it goes wrong way, like either way.
Yeah, and you have to be, I mean, you might have to do some supplemental water supply in there. You might not have to do as much, but you're
Yeah.
still gonna wanna kind
And
of
what do
take
you do
in.
if you get a car fire and when you get there, it's fully involved? You're not gonna get fire folks to start trying to throw a blanket over something that's,
The whole point of it is to try to save exposures. So like you might have exposures of other buildings or occupancies or other vehicles or things nearby. That's the point of trying to contain it.
It's clear if it's a windy day, this blanket may not work. So, I mean,
It's a semi tractor.
right? And it goes driving by really fast, it's gonna blow this blanket away. I guess in my mind, I would have thought there'd been more options, but apparently it's, I don't know, only a matter of time, I guess, before more options come up.
everything is
Keep
not.
watching.
Yeah.
Well, they'll
Everything's
probably
not
at some
keeping
point
up
put
with
fire
everything
suppression
else.
into the vehicles, right? I mean,
I don't know.
the next
It's a lot
natural.
of foam.
We have a lot of people in your apartment complexes that have electric vehicles and are looking for stations and charging stations. So
I'd also be curious too, like if there is an EV fire, is it more when it's sitting and charging or more when it's in motion?
I don't know statistics on that, but just kind of, I mean, we do have them in Cottage Grove. We have a lot of people in single family dwellings throughout the town and the village, and in your multifamily complexes that have electric vehicles. So it's something that is here that we do have as a potential hazard.
It's only a question of when. But like you said, Nick, you guys haven't had to put one out.
Not yet.
And you get those hoverboard things, hoverboards,
Oh, yeah.
they burn up too.
So in terms of plans right now, so you guys just came back from a vehicle issue or something on that. Like if you encounter an EV that's on fire, what is the protocol right now? Just to bring a tanker and dump as much water on it as possible right now?
Yeah, pretty much spray it till it's out, cool it down.
It depends. I think it really depends on the situation too.
Oh, sure.
Did it start on interior? Did it start in the engine compartment? Was it electrical? I mean, there's lots of different factors there, but.
And just because somebody's gonna ask me, like, when you bring a tanker, like, how much water is in a tanker compared to, like, you said it could take up to 6,000 to 8,000 gallons to put on
So-
it?
Current tanker two is 3,650 gallons. Current tender one is 2,100, but the new tender that's replacing that one can also be 3,500. So,
I need to remember a tender, not tanker.
so between the two tenders that we have and engine four's got 1,000 gallons of water. The two tenders on it will have 8,000 gallons with those three trucks.
One truck, theoretically, right? If it's a really hot EV, you need multiple apparatus to put out the fire.
Yep, so every car fire we have right now that's not in a hydranted area, the response plan is engine 4 and tender 2. And then if we need more, then we'll add more tenders to it. If it's like a really big semi, we might add engine 3 to it to get another engine out there. So it's,
So a lot of water goes to a car fire anyways.
Right.
So,
With a typical car fire, we use ultra high pressure too. Car fires, which really has been effective, and we supplement and back that up with an engine 3/4 line.
any other questions on this topic? I think we beat that one to death. Thanks again for that. Discuss solar panel fires and possible equipment needs.
so for solar panel fires, we met, like I said, we went out to the solar farm. Basically what they told us is if there's nobody in danger, leave it alone. Let it burn, don't touch it, don't put water on it, don't put tarps on it. just let it burn. That's what they told us. So what we're looking at it more for would be like, well, there's a few houses in Cottage Grove that have it on their house now. And it's becoming more and more common. There's really what we're looking for is some tarping for killing the electricity off of that. So photovoltaic systems creates the DC voltage that comes down to an inverter. The residential systems, most of them, the inverter uses line voltage from the normal AC line voltage. So if you shut off the inverter, it kills the power, but there's still DC voltage between the solar panel and the inverter. So if we had a structure fire on a house that has solar panels and it's daylight out, or even our lights from our trucks can energize it, there is a potential for voltage. So in that case, we're looking for tarps for covering the panels. That's what de-energizes them. But those are, I got a quote from our guy, they're like $50 for a tarp. So it's not nearly as bad as one of the others. We can buy that with our normal operating budget. So, but I just figured we already had it on the agenda, so I just touch on it.
Do you understand like the root cause of a solar panel catching fire? Is it age related? Is it, I mean, why would a solar panel catch on fire if there's nothing around it? Is it electrical?
Usually it's more like
or something?
Usually it's more of the equipment, not necessarily the panels themselves, like the inverter.
Sure.
The inverter fails, that's an electrical failure. The panels can fail as they start to age out. They can short out inside of them. It's not super common, but I guess we don't want to be in the situation where if we have a house on fire and we've got live energy we have to take care of. So we can get those with our normal operating budget, though. They're not super expensive for those tarps.
So if there's a house fire and there's solar panels, you'll drape this tarp over
the panel to de-energize it if it's safe. Obviously, if the entire roof's on fire, we're not gonna run up there with a tarp and worry about that first. We're just gonna try and get the fire out. Once the fire burns through the coating of the wires, if the panel's still intact, it could be generating live voltage with no insulation on the wires. So that's really more what we're concerned about. Like once the fire's kind of knocked down, we're in the overhaul stage. It's real easy for somebody to run into that, get shocked by that.
Okay. Any questions on that? Thanks, Nick. Next, discuss selling tender one.
They originally told us that the other tender was going to be done by the end of May. The last progress report, we just got a progress report Friday, and it's in the exact same position it was 2 weeks ago. They really haven't done much on it. It's not done yet, and it's not, in my opinion, it's not even really close to being done. So I got to talk to the salesman to see what his new estimate is, and why they're not really finishing it. So, but as far as selling it goes, as soon as the new one comes.
Wisconsin surplus?
Yeah, and probably surplus. There's some other places that offer money for fire tender or for fire trucks. I got a quote for like the ladder when we were talking about buying a ladder early, but there's a lot of conditions with that. Like you have to have new tires on it. You have to have all this stuff that you have to put a lot of money in there just to get it to sell it. And you might get more out of it, you might not. So probably
Wisconsin
surplus.
surplus. Try to
Yeah, put it there.
Yes.
Why not?
Maybe.
Always had pretty good
I've
luck.
done it before.
And I finally got all the titles. So all the vehicles are registered now. So one of them got lost, but we got it now.
Do you have them all in a safe place?
They're in a file here, and I have copies of them at the
Okay.
station, so there.
Good deal. Yeah, I think Wisconsin surplus makes sense to me, so.
So with that new one coming sometime, hopefully in the next month or so, we've gotten the bill and we'll split that according to the new
Okay.
agreement,
Do you have a rough idea so I can go talk to Pat about that?
461 and something,
Yeah.
wasn't it?
Yeah, of course. 470 something. Yeah. Trying to find it.
So in here somewhere.
461, 397.
461, 397. Okay. And that's the total, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And what's the name for this is tender,
This will be tender one.
this will be the new tender one?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Okay. Next, and I think we answered this one over email, but just to figured we'd have it for a conversation. It was discuss expense allocation for radios. And when I went back and looked at the agreement, this is all, let me pull it up here. Had it. Determine a proportionate share of district expenses. The cost and expenses of the district after being offset by any revenues shall be paid by the municipalities in proportion to their respective equalized valuation of all real property within the municipality. I think if I recall, Kim had asked a question about this and thought we should talk about it. And I'm just.
So what happened was when we originally went for ARPA funds, we priced out the radios of the trucks. At that time, there was 2 trucks that would be town-owned trucks, tender 1 and tender 2. So when I submitted for the ARPA fund estimates for each municipality, I had it written down that the town would be paying for their 2 trucks.
Those two.
Completely. But the question came up with the new IGA, because now the truck costs are being split. Would the cost of tender 1 and tender 2 be split by both municipalities, or would it still be paid for by just the town?
I mean, I think it should be split on EV because that's what we agreed to. I think it should be equalized value. I mean, that's what we agreed to.
By what the agreement says.
To me, it feels clear cut, but Kim wanted us, I wanted to do due diligence to have it up for conversation, but I feel like we ordered them at a specific time, but in between then and now, we have a new agreement.
Yeah.
It makes sense to me.
Did the language change in the agreement? And the order, was that placed before the new agreement was placed or in place? And so does that, because of the time it was ordered, does it fall
Let me
under the
pull up
old
the bill.
agreement?
The order was definitely placed before the new agreement was in place, 100%. So I guess it's up to you guys to decide if you want to go by the order date or the invoice date.
Was that
We go
up for
by
a lawyer?
delivery date. Isn't it delivery date?
I thought it was.
It's usually cash on delivery. Payments due June 3rd, 30.
No, but in the new agreement, doesn't it say it goes by delivery date versus invoice date or order date or anything else?
The only thing it talked about in terms of like delivery was around the vehicles themselves, because it was based on when they were purchased rather than when, if we were to dissolve it. That's the only thing I remember anything talking about. When do you factor in cost, but not on purchases. And again, I think it just makes sense to do it based on the agreement because the invoice went on upon delivery.
Okay.
Fine with that. I mean, I don't even remember what the old calculation would have been. We could ask Cameron, but I don't.
It really shouldn't matter. No, it's the cost.
The only issue that I see then is that when we submitted an estimate for your guys' ARPA funds, I didn't account for those 2 radios in the village's share. So now if you're picking up a portion of those 2 radios, it might be more than I originally estimated for ARPA funds.
Well, we just gave 8,500 back for our funds, so. And some of the projects have come under budget, so.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure you guys.
No,
Can we talk about that for a second? So the ARPA funds you submitted for the town for the two vehicles?
Yeah, so.
Separate submission for the village? Is
So
that-
what we did is when we talked about replacing all the radios, I gave both municipalities an estimate. The portable radios were shared between the 2 municipalities evenly or during your normal split.
100%.
And then the vehicles, what I did is I put, the 6 other trucks or whatever that are joint owned. I figured that cost for the 2 municipalities to split, but then I didn't put any split on tender 1 and tender 2. I put all that cost on the town share because they were,
The brush truck? The brush
brush is owned by both
Owned by
municipalities.
both.
So we're talking about
2 radios.
$500 here is what
So they're, I think each radio was $3,500 or something like that. So you're gonna,
Oh, I'm looking at the labor, sorry.
so you're gonna do a split based on 2 radios of 3,500. That could be another.
I'm not gonna,
I mean,
my time's working.
I guess I don't know what's the value of the ARPA funds in the equation? Is it $500?
Well, no, it'd be, because again, they were gonna pay for it outright. Now we're gonna split it. We'll pay the bigger share because we have more equalized value, but we have the money and
I was just thinking split it like the ARPA funds, right? Because those are, I guess I don't really know.
yeah, I mean, I've maintained from the beginning that when I even was on this commission, like, if you're in the commission, you should pay for all the vehicles, like, and I realize there's lots of people who come before me that may have valid arguments or disagree with me, but it's just how I personally feel, and I think that it's the right thing to do, and, these vehicles need radios. I'm happy to argue with a resident who says, hey, you ordered it at a certain time, and I just think this is the right thing to do.
I guess I was just kind of bringing it up. So like, if Matt sees a number bigger than what we originally told him, there's an explanation why.
There's absolutely an explanation. There was an agreement. You ordered them, we didn't have an agreement. We have a new agreement. Now the bill came, like,
Okay.
Sure.
that's how I feel about it.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's just a discussion item. So next, discuss and consider sale of old radios.
So, obviously all the old.
What are you doing?
We sold some old radios a few months ago and we got about $100 for the mobile radios that just came out. So I think we have like 7 mobile radios and we have like the 25 portable radios. So I would.
Wisconsin surplus.
There you go. Again, I was figuring Wisconsin surplus, but before we just sold something without talking to you guys, we just figured.
I mean, they're all old.
Yeah.
Like they're out of
Probably
date.
not gonna get much for it, but if we get something for it, we could.
Something's better than nothing.
I'll make a motion to approve sale of the old radios on Wisconsin surplus.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Opposed, abstained, motion carries. Discuss and consider sale of old fire hose.
Same thing, Wisconsin surplus probably, but just as an explanation, we used to use a lot of 1.5-inch hose on a couple of our fire lays and on our front bumpers. And it's just got a lot higher friction loss to it because it's smaller. An 1 3/4 hose will fit in the same spot and it has half the friction loss. So we now by buying the colored hose that we have done over the years, we have so much extra 1 3/4 that we could replace all the 1.5 with 1 3/4. So we're looking to just sell all the 1.5 because we really have no use for it anymore. So
Wisconsin surplus again.
That sounds like a motion to me.
Sounds like it to me. So moved.
Motion in a second. Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion carries. Next, hold officer elections. So based on the new agreement, I just put a note in here, odd numbered years. The chair shall be one of the town commissioners and the vice chair and secretary shall be 2 of the village commissioners. I will entertain nominations for chair.
I'll nominate Chris.
One second, Chris.
I have a motion and a second for Commissioner Hampton. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion carries. Next, vice chair.
Well, I think you should do the secretary first, because whoever has the best handwriting.
We all take notes electronically.
I mean, regardless, my note taking skill
I didn't have Chris's vice chair. Do I have a second?
Wait, who made what?
I made the motion for Chris to be the vice chair.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay, motion carries. I nominate Vince. You're totally
Worst notes.
I nominate Vince to be the secretary.
You didn't give me a chance. You just went right into it.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Sorry, Vince.
I didn't want to make any enemies.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion carries. Awesome. Future agenda items. Other than the usual, anything new?
we can put the EV discussion back on there. I'll have some information from the county chief or the state chiefs. See what they're doing. Share, not that we have to purchase anything, but just more information update kind of thing.
Preliminary festival report.
Is it?
Will that be before the festival?
It'll be after.
Yeah, it'd be after.
Yeah, after.
Isn't it usually the day after? No,
Oh, for festival, Father's Day's festival.
not this, I was thinking of last year. Last year it just worked out that way, but not this year. Cool. Next meeting date, I have Monday,
26.
June 26th, 6:30.
Do we want to continue meeting here?
Just easier here.
Okay.
I'll be in Wyoming.
You said 26 for fire?
Yep.
Okay.
26.
By the way, Chris, do appreciate you letting us come here this year. It's just easier. Old habits die hard for me, so.
I'll move adjournment.
Motion for adjournment. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Debatable. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, everybody. See you next month.
Either one. They're.
So does the secretary make?
Oh, and they-
those?
Emailed them directly last week, so I
This meeting will now be recorded.
Vice Chair just as the chairman.
So what is the annual report out to the board?
Village Public Works took.
What are my responsibilities?